Hello, everybody. We are brought to you today by Routine. When you sleep, you lose between a pound and a pound and a half of water, mainly from expelling vapors and sweating. What do you do first thing in the morning? Well, most people wake up, don't drink water, and they go straight for the caffeine. They drink coffee, and by doing so, you actually dehydrate yourself even more. So, Morning Routine is a product that contains half an organic lemon, 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, Himalayan sea salt, all 6 essential electrolytes, and most importantly, no sugar. They come in these little single serve packets, and they are part of every single morning for me. When I wake up, the first thing I do is grab my shaker bottle, pour one of these little single serve packets in, shake it up, and drink it. Genuinely, the days I use Morning Routine versus the days I don't, the days I do, I truthfully feel hydrated. I feel like my brain is just working in a way that it doesn't on days that I don't start my day off with one of these. Routine, trusted ingredients, made convenient. If you go to yourroutine.com and use code ShaneWhite30 at checkout, you'll get 30% off your first order. Again, this is just a daily morning supplement that I take. And a little hack for everyone listening too, I take these first thing in the morning. Sometimes when I feel just dehydrated, or maybe if you decide to have an alcoholic beverage, they're also great, in my opinion, after if you have a drink, having one of these afterwards before you go to bed to rehydrate. Just any part of your day, you can plug one of these in just to rehydrate yourself and get going. And like I said, go to yourroutine.com and use code ShaneWhite30 at checkout for 30% off your first order. Today, we're also brought to you by NeuroRoast. Today's episode is brought to you by NeuroRoast, a company that's dedicated to helping you optimize your brain function and overall well-being. NeuroRoast's flagship product is their premium mushroom coffee, which is made with an organic single origin coffee and their signature blend of 5 different functional mushrooms, including cordyceps, lion's mane, reishi, turkey tail, and chaga. Mushroom coffee is a new and exciting way to supercharge your day. Unlike regular coffee, which can cause jitters and crashes, mushroom coffee provides a more balanced and sustained energy boost, allowing you to stay focused and productive throughout the day. And with NeuroRoast ground and instant coffee options, you can enjoy the benefits of mushroom coffee wherever and whenever you need it. And here's some great news for my listeners today. NeuroRoast is offering an exclusive discount just for you. If you use the code Shane White during checkout at neuroroast.com, that's NEUROAST.com, you'll get 30% off your order. Whether you choose ground or instant coffee, both will work. So again, that's Shane White at checkout for 30% off your purchase. So if you're looking for a natural and delicious way to boost your focus, memory, and overall cognitive function, give NeuroRoast mushroom coffee a try. With their commitment to quality and sustainability, you can trust that you're getting the best possible coffee for your brain and your body. And one last time, use that code Shane White at checkout to get 30%. That is the prompt they gave me. Love the guys at NeuroRoast. Genuinely, folks, from me to you, their coffee is delicious. It does honestly have a different sort of caffeination way of it. The best way to describe it is it doesn't give you the jitters or the crash. I love their stuff. I get the flavored mushroom coffee, ground coffee. To be honest, it's one of my favorite afternoon coffee products. If I'm going to have a cup of coffee for some reason in the afternoon, whether it's a long, busy day, whatever it may be, I love taking their stuff because it really doesn't give you this like jittery, super elevated, caffeinated feeling, but you feel like you have energy and you don't have the crash later. So genuinely do love NeuroRoast. Again, their website is NEUROAST.com and the code is Shane White. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening today. The episode is up after this. All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Shane White Show. I'm pumped today. I didn't tell you guys this before we hit record, but I've only had one other recording with both founders at the same time. So this is exciting. It's 3 of us on the podcast today. Wow. So Seth and Steven, welcome to the show, the founders of Masa Chips. Welcome and thanks for taking the time.
Cool. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. For folks listening who don't know you guys and don't know what Masa Chips is or the brand is, would you guys mind both just introducing yourselves real quickly and giving a quick intro to what the brand is?
Sure. So I'm Steven, also known as Really Tan Man on certain social media platforms on the internet. Masa chips are tortilla chips that are made with the perfect set of ingredients that, of course, exclude seed oils. But it's not just that; they are the tortilla chip perfected. If you think about the dozens of different brands of snacks in the grocery aisle or in the snack aisle, you'd think, how can you have a new tortilla chip? It's all been done. It hasn't been. Everything is just equally the same, like garbage tier ingredients. And so we've gone back from, first principles and fixed every single possible thing. Which is there's only three ingredients, but we fixed every single possible one and created the perfect tortilla chip. And that's what we sell.
And my name's Seth. I handle the finance side for the most part at Masa Chips. My background, I was working in private equity doing impact investing. And so my kind of role before this was trying to figure out how to make the world better through investing. And basically felt like the investor side down funnel, where you're working on more mature companies, doesn't have the same impact, right? You're an owner instead of someone else, but the company is kind of there either way. And
Sure.
so, founder, I get to play or support making things become that work. And I think getting to bring things into the world that make the world better is just a job I'd rather have.
Love it. Yeah, no, appreciate the background for both you guys. For everyone listening too, I'll put a link in the show notes so you can kind of directly go to their website and social media and all that fun stuff. For anyone watching, you can see behind Seth, he's got a really good backdrop of the brand. It's funny, guys, and you probably laugh, but I do, I'm a big fan of branding, and you guys stood out to me really early on as I started seeing you guys pop up around the internet. For everyone listening, the packaging is vertically striped. It definitely catches your eye, no matter if it's on retail or even I think on social. It just pops really, really well. Would love to understand even from the beginning, where did the branding come from? Where did you guys come up with the concept, and would love to understand just like the overall brand design, like how you guys came up with that.
Yeah, I think
So,
a little bit earlier, and maybe we can give the full story, Stephen.
Sure, yeah.
oh, wow. We're going way back.
Let's go to the beginning. This podcast is all about 0 to 1.
Yeah.
It is like a full, yeah.
So the beginning is around way back. It's like 10 years ago when I was basically struggling with my health. I just finished my freshman year of college. I was eating at the dining hall and I was just like not feeling good. I got sick so many times that year. And it was like decent food by dining hall standards, but like there's just like something wrong with it. And I didn't know anything about health or nutrition at the time. But I was about to discover quite a lot. And so it just so happened that I was studying abroad in Belgium. I was doing an internship at a neuroscience lab the following summer. And in Europe, there are no dining halls in the dorms, and there was no mom to cook for me. I was 19 at the time, and so I had to learn to cook for myself. And being a naturally curious person, I ended up like, I don't know, just Googling how to feed yourself as a human, and then stumbled into this whole world of diets. And I think the paleo diet was popular at the time. So I started learning about this and was like, okay, cool, I can give this a shot. And within about 2 weeks of doing that, I noticed that I could breathe through my nose for like the first time ever, right? Like congestion is one of the health problems that I always suffered with as a kid. And so that was eye-opening to me because it made me realize that like my physical circumstances are not fixed, right? Like you can, you're the master of your own destiny, so to speak. And so that was pretty cool because then I'm like, well, if I can fix my congestion, what else can I fix? And that sort of sent me off the deep end into the world of health and nutrition and fitness and wellness and the biohacking and all that stuff. So over the next so many years, when I went back to college, and even after when I was working as a software engineer at Facebook after I graduated, I just spent all my spare time learning about as much as I could about all this, reading all the books, watching all the YouTube videos, reading all the studies, experimenting on myself, fermenting kombucha in my college dorm room,
Wow.
making sourdough bread before it was cool in 2018, like kneading dough at like 1 a.m. so that like when I woke up the next morning on like Sunday, I could actually like bake bread. Um, so really getting into all that stuff. And it wasn't until 2021 in the summer when I was basically bored at my software job because, in big tech, at least back then, you only worked like 10 hours a week. So I was basically just bored and decided I would start a TikTok, like sharing all the stuff that I had learned. And that went really well. I got 80,000 followers in 80 days of doing that,
Oh,
from doing
wow.
that. And that taught me that like, hey, I can actually like speak to people in a way that they want to listen to. Well, that's cool, and talk about the stuff that I'm passionate about. But the other thing that I learned from it is that knowledge about health is not really enough to fix anything, right? Everyone's sick, everyone's obese, everyone's like got skin problems, everyone's got hormone problems. We know this, but knowing about it is not going to fix anything, because what was happening at the time is I would just keep getting comments from people or like DMs saying like, hey, cool, that's great, but like, how do I actually do that, right? I'm not like you. I can't spend an hour once a week driving to some farm outside the city. I can't like go and cook all my meals 3 times a day. Like, how do I just be healthy without all this BS? And that's like not an easy problem to solve, because all the food that's convenient is basically poison. And
Sure.
so
Oh,
that
yeah.
was like the problem I had at the time. And then serendipitously, I happened to be in New Year's with Seth and a few other college friends in
Yeah.
Miami last year, and that's
So
when it all started.
January 1st, 2022. My background very different from Steven's. Not been very careful what I put in my body. Eat kind of like a pig on occasion. And January 1st, 2022. I, like a lot of people in the world, very hungover, sitting with a bag of Tostitos, just trying to eat the pain away.
Sure.
And
Okay. Yeah.
so Steven and I are at an Airbnb with a few other friends, and he comes downstairs to the living room where I'm just stuffing my face, trying to get the hangover to stop. And he's just making fun of me, as as you do. And we rub each other back and forth, and we're talking about carbs and fat, and how food is food, carbs and fat are fine, but Tostitos aren't really food. And we get into a conversation about seed oils, which at the time I had never heard of. Vegetable oils were probably good for you because vegetables are good for you, or something. It wasn't really a thing on my mind. Um, and I'm working in private equity at the time, working 80 or 100 hours a week. Definitely cooking, let alone grocery shopping, is not on my schedule. And so I'm one of exactly those people telling Steven, like, you're probably right. I probably shouldn't be eating all this junk. And also, I don't have time to care, so make it easy or fuck off.
Sure.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is like the exact problem that I was getting from my audience was like, hey, like that's all well and good, but like, A, it's a lot of work and a lot of time that I don't have, and B, you also don't enjoy your life because, I just eat whatever I want. It's much easier that way. And it's like my rebuttal to this, which was not always the case. I used to sort of be like, well, screw you, I'd rather be healthy. My rebuttal to this now, as I learned over the years, is that like, being healthy is much more enjoyable because the food you get to eat is like literally better, right? On a daily basis,
It's
I
real.
get to eat
Yeah.
grass-fed, pasture-raised beef and grass-fed butter and raw milk ice cream that my wife makes from scratch. I just got married, by the way, so that's a weird statement for
Yeah.
me to make.
Congratulations.
But
Love
thank you.
it.
You get to eat like literally caviar and like sourdough bread and honey and fresh fruit that's like actually like has flavor to it because it's not grown with a bunch of fertilizers. So um my food is very enjoyable, but however, it's not convenient, and so I think that was the real issue, because when we were talking about the Tostitos, I was getting into this whole like the perfect tortilla chip, right? Like, no, tortilla chips could be so good, right? You just make them with X, Y, and Z. It's not that you have to give this delicious food up. You could just make them, right. But that thing didn't exist, and so Seth basically challenged me to go make it.
Oh,
Which
okay. So you
that
were
was
basically like, I could just make my own. That's way better.
Yeah, this also keep in mind. I mean, he's working in Facebook. I'm working in finance. This was not like we're out to make a business. This was
I mean, I could totally see you guys on New Year's Eve just having this debate. Like,
yeah,
go
yeah.
do it. Go do it,
go do
Steven.
it. Yeah.
You won't.
You-
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But we did. So we went back and we're kind of excited by the idea because both of us had been interested in starting a business, for independently, for quite a few years. We got in touch with a food startup consultant who basically told us that we just couldn't do it. Because the perfect tortilla chip, of course, is organic corn and grass-fed tallow and salt. Grass-fed tallow being like the rendered fat from cows that is an animal product and not like widely used in the American food system today. It used to be, of course, but we can get into that. And so this guy was more or less said that if you want to do this, you have to change the ingredients. You got to use coconut oil or avocado oil or something. And I'm like, well, obviously, I'm here to make the perfect tortilla chip. I'm not going to go do that.
Yeah. Right.
So we had to go. I had to literally roll my sleeves up and literally make it myself. I bought a turkey fryer from Costco. I bought a box of grass-fed tallow and some organic corn tortillas from some local shop. Chopped them up, got the propane tank, fired up the fryer last Easter in my parents' backyard. I'm in the deck while everyone's like
wow.
eating their normal food. I'm like out here trying not to burn the house down.
Like, what's Steven
Um,
doing again?
Yeah, no one's batting an eye, of course. Business as usual over here. But so I made them, and I really liked them, and then I fed them to my family, and they really liked them, and so they're a bit less extreme than I am when it comes to health. So the fact that they enjoyed this thing as much as I did is like that's a really good sign, because like
Sure, yeah.
the holy grail in health food, of course, is something that's healthy but also tastes good. Um, People in the modern American mind, like they don't understand that they understand a fundamental distinction between health foods and delicious foods, and like you can't have both. Just like that's how people approach cuisine. So to actually like genuinely have both is like what's so revolutionary about it. So that was it. I was like, okay, we have something special here. The only challenge was that we were going to have to make it by hand, and so obviously the costs involved with making something by hand are much higher. So we need to be able to charge more money to like fund our ability to produce this. And then that's like where the branding, and that's where your original question comes in. That's where branding comes in. So
there's a general question on distribution, right? Like you can have the best mousetrap in the world, but if you can't market it right between packaging and branding, whatever, no one finds out about it, or it costs you so much for anyone to find out about it that you'll never have a business. And so,
right.
I had a buddy I'd worked with on a couple of other projects I'd been in. Who's just like a design genius and artist in Scotland. And we basically had a half-hour call with him and said, here's our persona. It's beautiful people who are comfortable on the beach, maybe a wooden yacht in the Mediterranean, just enjoying life. Think Positano, Amalfi
Coming
Coast,
together.
right?
Yeah.
yeah,
We just want our bag, our crunch, our chip, everything about that experience to just make you feel like you're there. And honestly, I think it was like literally a 30-minute call with this guy, and he came back with this bag design. And we're like, that's Masa. Perfect. And
That's
so
great.
he's a genius and took what we really wanted as this like fulsome experience where you have the health, you have the taste, you have the kind of psychological element of being where you want to be, all tied together with the brand, the packaging, and the visual. And that's how we got Masa.
And I'm guessing now that this is all coming to my mind. Does this look like an umbrella? Is it kind of like those, or what am I thinking of?
Yeah,
When you're
Yes,
talking
you think
about
about the
this,
umbrellas,
Yeah,
the
it's
beach
like,
towels in
yes, the beach
Positano.
towels. It's all
Yes,
like,
yes.
now it's
That's
like hitting
literally
my
what
head.
it
Like
is.
that's,
Yeah,
okay, I love it. That
yeah,
resonated as soon as you started talking about it. I'm like, aha, that's exactly
yeah.
like it's somewhere deep in my brain. I can't pull it out, but I know exactly what I'm thinking.
and if you
There's a
don't
lot of like sort of subliminal like signaling that's going on there too, because people, the seed oil discourse, such as it is, talks a lot about tanning. That's like my name being on social media being really tan man. Part of that is like seed oils are bad, the sunlight is good, but also seed oils make the sunlight bad for you. So like in order to tan correctly, you need to not eat seed oils. So there's that element of this too. It's like the 1950s Mediterranean leisure, wearing linen on a beach, in the Mediterranean. So like there's that aspect. So when you see Masa and you get the vibe, like that food, not specifically but also generally, like that food is enabling you to live in this way. And so that's why it all sort of comes together. Like you don't imagine the typical Doritos customer to be the type of person who's in the place where Masa is, right?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
that's not the same person. The Masa person is like wearing linen, is fit, is tan, is leisurely strolling around a beach, getting an espresso and whatever.
From a customer experience perspective, what we want to deliver to people is something closer to like a luxury handbag or even a Starbucks coffee where you feel good walking around with it. Like if you think about it, if you ever, drunk, sober, whatever, you get a bag of Cheetos or Doritos at a convenience store, you probably don't want any of your friends like seeing you. Or it's not the biggest in the world, but like it's a little shameful, right? Like
Yeah,
you
it's
feel
not.
gross.
Yeah.
You're not treating your body well. Like you feel kind of bad about it. What we want our customers to get with every bag of masa is they kind of want to be seen, right? It feels good. You're treating your body well. The bag is beautiful. You just feel good walking around with it. And so it's really flipping that the whole concept of what snacking looks like for people.
I love
think
that. No, yeah.
It addresses a significant cultural issue we have today around food, which goes back to what I was saying before about how healthy food must taste bad. Like
Sure.
people, the type of people who are interested in health and fitness, which is not everyone, but it's a large number of people, there's like a weird sort of psychological complex they have where they're guilty about food all the time because it's been internalized to them from health class and the doctor and the gym and social media and whatever, that like if it tastes good it's indulgent and therefore it's bad for you. Every time they eat something they enjoy, like that's tempered by them also feeling bad and guilty about it, and maybe their friends are shaming them for like eating a bunch of snacks or being a fat ass or whatever. So food should not be like that. Food is our sustenance. Food is how we survive. Like an entire country walking around with a psychological complex of like guilt induced food is bad when humans need to eat like 2 or 3 times a day to survive. So the broader idea that we're trying to get at is reconditioning people to actually feel good when they eat, which they should when they eat the right things. It tastes good, it's good for you, and I think the whole brand experience enables them to psychologically feel good about it as well. And that's where the actual like cultural change will happen because of this. And I think that's also where the brand power lies.
Another way to think about this is bringing American food culture from the English model to the French model, where the English eat not so well, and they don't tend to feel so good about it. Whereas the French eat really decadent, rich foods and tend to be pretty attractive, right? Like very fit and healthy. And it's not because they're eating kale and chia seeds all the time, but they eat real foods that have real fats and real proteins and walk a lot, they move a lot. And so they eat really high quality whole foods. And I think part of what the Masa and Ancient Crunch broader vision, which we can talk about as well, is making it easy for Americans to shift their pantry and their diet towards that focus where you eat, you love your food, you enjoy eating as an experience, and you feel great about it both during the meal and after.
Love that. No, yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Now I'm getting like French, and I'm also getting like Italian coast vibes. It totally makes so much sense now. So I would love to go back to because one of the things on this show I love to really get into the root of is, I mean, we hear about Steven doing this at his parents' house on Easter, like really just trying to hand make it himself. Seth's over here egging him on a few months before that to go try it out. All of that is like, that happens. Like you hear about people who go through that same process. The part that I feel most people never make the leap on is somewhere in between there, where you guys challenge each other. Steven's over here messing with the product. How did you guys go from, okay, we have this cool concept, we have this belief system of what we can bring to the market. How did you go from that to actually creating the product? And then ultimately, like, what made you guys jump and do this full time? It sounds like you both had, blooming careers as young guys doing really well. Obviously, it's a big jump to then say, hey, I'm going to go sell better for you tortilla chips.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the second question is easier to answer, so we'll do that first. I think both of us were like, all right, well, we're going to do this once we saw the upside in it, like tangibly. So we were selling Masa for about like 8 weeks or 4 weeks before I quit my job at Facebook. For Seth, it took a little longer, which makes sense. Finance skepticism. It's all.
I'm with Seth in my business. I am the Seth for sure. I'm the finance guy. Yeah.
But I think
you need both though. You need both.
No, but in the same way, it's like once the upside is like apparent and it's more worthwhile than doing whatever you're currently doing, then it just makes sense.
Sure.
The other thing, there's an audio clip. You know those Instagram Reels on Instagram? That's like TikTok and whatever.
Sure. They're copycat for sure.
But I mean, the bigger issue in that is I didn't want TikTok because I don't want Reels because you watch them way too much. I watch them way too much, and now they're on Instagram and whole issue. But there's one that stuck with me, which was I think a Joe Rogan audio overlaid on like a Minecraft visual.
Okay.
Where it's basically saying like, your life is a story. You're the hero. What would the hero do? Like, go do that. And I think when God gives you the chance to go be the hero and like build a business that changes something real for hundreds of thousands, millions, maybe tens of millions of people versus being like an Excel jockey, that feels like an easy call, right? And so there's something like romantic and YOLO about getting the chance to jump, right? Like you're going to die eventually and life is short and it's full of experiences. And if you choose for those experiences to be cool and interesting with people you like, you're going to have an awesome time. And if you choose for life to be, blooming careers, but not really anything you're inspired by, it's just a tough life to live.
No, I love
that. Golden handcuffs, man.
Yeah. Well, especially, I mean, just to be transparent with you guys, I've had a lot of people on here that have started businesses, but working at Facebook, working in private equity, like arguably those are some pretty safe career paths that you can make some pretty good money, right? It's not like you guys were, I don't know, working for somewhere where Most
Yeah,
people in those career paths don't make the jump you guys made. So kudos to both of you. I mean, obviously it's a big leap.
I think, yeah, going back to the first question you asked, I think that actually is part of it. Because, like, if both of us were working in private equity, I don't think this would have happened. But because I worked at Facebook, which is basically a part-time job, um, I had the spare
Hopefully Zuck
time.
hears this and he's just like, God damn it.
Hopefully, the Zuck has been an unwilling or unknown angel investor, an unwitting angel
Okay.
investor this entire time.
Oh yeah, there we go.
We appreciate it.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
The first major investor in my life. Anyway, but yeah. So if I didn't have the part-time job there, I don't think this would have really gotten off the ground. To answer your first question, like there's a bit of
Sure.
like, oh, I need to like actually think about and have the creative energy to go and do this and go and pick up my turkey fryer and think to even do that and blah blah blah. And I just had the time to be able to do that, and I certainly had like the will and passion about it. I've been going nuts about health foods for 10 years, as I mentioned.
Yeah.
So I mean, like there's probably like 10 different masas that weren't masa, like recipes or like foods that I've invented or started making or learned how to make myself before this. None of them are good businesses, so that's why they don't exist. But you know, this is what I do. So it wasn't that much of a leap for me to go and actually like make this happen.
That's a great answer. And what's interesting from already hearing from you guys, it seems like the 0 to 1 of jumping, making the product and selling it happened really quick. And again, I'm just a dumb consumer that, you know, I'm not creating a product today, but I feel like all of a sudden it was just, you guys were fucking everywhere. Like you're like, I'm not going to lie. Like, and I'm not blowing smoke. It was, and maybe it's because I follow a lot of like male fitness influencers on Instagram, and you guys have been crushing it. And I've had Eric on here, and I've been trying to get Brian Maz on here. So if he's listening or you want to give him a little, be like, can you just respond to my Instagram? I'd love to get you on. There's all these guys that I follow that I'm like, oh, they have Masa now. They've got Masa now. So it was one of those things that, again, I would love to know and share with the audience if that was part of the strategy from the beginning. But I just transparently, against brands that I know and work with and talk to in the space, you guys did a really good job early on of just getting the product in the hands of people who live the same lifestyle that you guys are just talking about.
So I think a lot of that is about having a product that people want to have and want to promote. I think, and not to name anybody or to shame anyone, but there are products that are a harder natural fit for a lot of influencers. And so, you know, they'll get paid, they'll promote it and things, and they become salespeople, but it's not something they're excited about. And it kind of comes across in their post frequency, the energy behind the post, all that kind of stuff. I think when you frankly hit product market fit, just like it's a delicious chip that makes you feel good. People love chips. People love pretty things. It's beautiful, right? And you are like a naturally desirable thing for people that where they'd be a natural consumer without you reaching out. You just end up getting a lot more traction. And so we've built a network of I think over 300 people now who help just like share posts. We send them some free product, seeding, all that kind of stuff. And so that's been really successful for us. I think the anchor for that, in addition to the product, is that Steven himself is an influencer. And so through Really Tan Man, there's a lot of credibility that we've had as a platform to say, you know, this is Really Tan Man's product. His reputation is staked on this. It's working. People like it. Right? And it's not, you know, here's another thing in a bottle and hope that you feel good about it.
Yeah, it was a lot easier initially to get influencers on board because I just had like friends or acquaintances just from having like 40,000 Twitter followers or whatever. You just DM each other. And so it would have been a lot harder for an anonymous brand to all of a sudden get the attention of people who are influential. So we had, it's not as if, you know, I'm the primary influencer or anything, or like that's necessary. But that was a good bit of fuel for the fire initially. And that was, influencers for sure were our initial go-to-market strategy. We didn't have a single Facebook ad. We started in July last year. And we didn't have a single like meaningful Facebook ad until like January.
Good for you guys. Wow. So it's been about a year of selling the product and being out in the market.
It's been about a year. And the first, whatever that is, 4 months were influencers. And we didn't even have an email guy until someone told me that like, hey, you should have emails as a D2C business. And I was like, really? I don't open emails. So why would I have emails? And then we got an email guy.
Oh, that great. That's funny.
We have our subscription business. We have a funnel ultimately for D2C customers where get a sample pack, try it out. It's cheap, under $20. If you like it, buy some more. If you really like it, get subscription, save money.
Mm-hmm.
And this was Steven's idea. I'd never personally subscribed to food before. And so,
Okay. Yeah.
again, it's like, why would people, but if you really like something and there's the only way to get it and you save money, it's a great deal for you. And so I think a lot of the journey for both of us has been realizing we are not the universe and there are lots of people who are not like us. And if it's working for someone else, give it a try and maybe it'll work for you. And if not, that's okay too, right? But just like tinkering, iterating with the things that wouldn't work for you as a customer, but might work for your customer base is great.
That's a really good one. When I was at RX Bar, super quick story. We had, I'm going to butcher his last name, Steve Cahill, the CEO of Kellogg's, came in after we got acquired and came and gave a talk. And I'll never forget. Someone on my team asked, basically like, we lived in our little RX Bar bubble. We were blowing up, we were growing quickly, and we basically said like, are we all the innovation that Kellogg has? Like it was kind of the question because we were growing really fast and we're like, Kellogg's dying, right? Like everything they sell is dying. And I'll never forget his response. He laughed, first of all, and he goes, you're here in Chicago. Like, yes, we're around you. Everyone's trying to eat healthy. Everyone's trying to eat clean. He's like, go park your ass in the middle of Nebraska at a Walmart and just sit there for an hour and see what people are walking out of the store with. It's not RX bars. Yeah. And it was really eye-opening for me because I'm like, I probably live in that little world where I'm like, better for you, try and eat healthy, try and eat clean. But that doesn't go to say that like that's not a huge market. It obviously is. But it does go to say that like whatever your little niche is, sometimes you can learn a lot from brands who maybe aren't in your niche. Just because it's not what you're in. There's probably lots of things you can take away from it. That's really cool though.
There's people out there like buying foods with seed oil specifically because they think they're good. Like, there's literally there's everything out there.
Right. I mean, do you guys feel like you've really, because I'll be honest, I think you guys have done such a good job of pinning the no seed oil as like a big, big piece of the branding. And I know personally that's just becoming things I hear more about on podcasts and I hear more about just in general the circles I run around in. Do you feel like that's been something that's just been great timing for you guys? Because it does seem like that's getting a lot of steam.
So timing is phenomenal. If you look at Google Trends, which I think is a super powerful tool, seed oils as a search term are 1% of keto, but skyrocketing. So it's like absolutely an hockey stick moment. So I think from a cultural tailwind perspective, like we are at the beginning of a massive, massive wave, which hopefully will stay around because seed oils, unlike keto, which is painful where you don't get to enjoy what you like.
Right.
Cutting out canola oil makes your life better. And so it seems like a persistent mega trend, which will be nice. But yeah, I think from a timing perspective, we basically nailed perfectly the beginning of the next big thing, for sure.
I mean, that timing is so much, it's so important, right? Like I know you guys hit on paleo. I always pin that back when RX really got their hockey stick moment. It was launching it when the paleo movement became a huge thing.
Yeah.
Timing's huge. So for you guys, you launch on D2C. Where else did you guys launch in the first year?
So we're in retail and select locations. We're in Southern California has been great for us. And I think when you think about the branding and the product and the value prop, like LA is just exactly the right place. So we are the #1 tortilla chip in Erewhon. I think we're #2 in all of snacks, minus like a gluten-free cookie or something.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So Erewhon's been like a perfect fit for us. We launched in Bristol Farms recently. We're in maybe 100 or so independents around the country. And then we are getting more supply online later this year, which would enable a lot more retail rollout. But that's kind of where we are on retail. And then we're available on Amazon, but we've had trouble keeping them stocked, honestly.
Okay. Yeah. Good problem to have.
Those are our channels. Yeah.
Very good. And then how big is the team? You haven't been around very long, but how many people are behind just the two of you?
It's about 15, most of whom are manufacturing. We have 3 people who help us on like the laptop side of things. And then we have about a dozen guys we have an in-house production facility. So as Steven mentioned,
nice.
We couldn't find a co-man originally because it's animal fat, it's saturated fat, it's all these kinds of issues that co-mans often don't want to deal with. And so we, for the last year, basically worked to find one. We got one yes in Austin at the Tortilla conference, which is apparently a thing.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. You guys must have been, I mean, that was very disruptive probably for you guys to show up though.
I'm running around with 20 bags of masa in like a leather satchel, basically, giving them out to people while they're talking about like moisture content and fiber. I don't know. Stuff beyond me, right? But yeah, very, very weird at the conference. A lot of fun. And one guy basically just saw that we were marketing a new product, bring something new, something different to what is like a great but ultimately like relatively legacy industry. And he asked to take me out for dinner. We got food and drinks, whatever, and hit it off. And then I was like maybe a month later, Steve and I flew out to Indianapolis to meet him. And now we have a lease in place. We have machines coming in, and we should actually have a co-man set up by November 1st or so.
Oh, wow. You said Indianapolis?
Indianapolis, yeah.
That's where I'm from. So that's funny. I very rarely hear of food brands coming out of Indianapolis. That's odd. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was beautiful too. Yeah, go ahead.
I think it shows the difficulty of like co-manufacturing this product is like the only one we found is one that is just going to make the facility for us. Like it's not like it exists already. He makes tortillas, but like he can't like use the same equipment or whatever. So we're like in a completely separate space with completely separate equipment. He's just like standing it up for us. Like there's no co-mans for this thing.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so we had 200 nodes. We have more products to come after Masa has moved to new co-man, and we can use our current facility for the potato chips. But the co-man challenge for animal fat fried foods is honestly pretty shocking.
It's amazing when you think like simpler ingredients, simpler process. It's harder to get help to make those, right? Isn't that? It seems so counterintuitive.
Well, like we're sitting here trying to make tortilla chips as if like the exact same way that they were made in the 1950s, and no one can do it. It's like you hear about those people like on Twitter, for example, people talk about these threads where like they'll show some marble carved like cathedral or something in Europe, and then they'll say, "Oh, my friend's dad works at like a granite company, and we asked him if he could make that, and he's like, no one alive today could make that." And it's like people are doing this when like indoor plumbing wasn't a thing, and now they can't do it anymore. It's a similar kind of concept. People were making tallow, animal fat fried snacks for probably a good 7 decades in the U.S. before it stopped being a thing, and now no one can do it anymore.
Wild. Yeah, it seems so backwards. And so, and Seth, you hit on one of my next questions was, you guys, obviously Masa Chips are the first thing you guys bring to market.
Yeah.
If you just interact with the brand on the website or social, you'll see that you guys also have Ancient Crunch. It must be a broader play of a variety of products that fall into the same type of landscape?
Yeah, so our next product is Bandy Crisps, which is a potato chip. It's going to have a similar ethos. So life is good, things are beautiful, you're healthy, animal fat fried, either duck fat or beef tallow or stole.
Oh, nice. Okay.
But similar fundamental ethos, just for a potato chip. And the broader business concept for what we're kind of thinking is like phase one is Ancient Crunch, which is the umbrella corporation which like launches and scales out better for you snacks with animal fats as their core fat. So that'll be masa, it'll be Bandy Crisps, which is potato chip, it'll be cheese crackers, cookies, granola, whatever kind of stuff that we have fun making.
Oh, yeah.
And then the really broad vision, if we're here for 10, 15, 20 years, is something that looks more like what we call ancient life, where you end up with all of your food fixed, all of your clothing fixed, all of your cosmetics and bathroom stuff fixed, right? It's just kind of returning to things that don't poison you. That's a general philosophy.
Oh, love it. Yeah.
Kind of clean out your pantry first, then go through your bathroom, go through your wardrobe, what have you. And that's like the very long-term macro view, but the, 3 to 7 year story is Ancient Crunch, which is get your pantry fixed.
Wow. Oh, that's really, really cool. Dropping some big macro plans here on the podcast. This is cool. Yeah. No, I mean, so what does the timeline look like for the other product, like as far as the pantry? Is Masa going to be a focus for, a few years and then you bring something else to market? Or you guys
not anything we can explicitly commit to at the moment.
Sure.
It's too variable.
Yeah, it's a question of getting the co-man stood up so that we can get the current facility going with the new product. I think the rough cadence is probably 1 new product a year, roughly.
Okay, love it.
Go faster or slower, but we basically want to scale a product in our own facility where we can control quality, make sure we're really proud of what we're putting out. And then when we have enough kind of proven demand and customers are really happy, move it to a co-man and get the next thing running. But it is a lot of like tight quality control and getting that initial customer base built up before we do that.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And for you guys to even, sorry, one more question to back out because I find it so interesting. You guys have moved so fast in such a short amount of time. I have so many exciting questions because it's honestly really cool what you guys have done in such a short window. When you guys made the leap, it sounds like you guys jumped in, just the two of you. What's your guys' perspective? And would love to hear what you guys did at Masa and with Ancient Crunch as a whole around just standing up a business. So to give context, a lot of people listening to this fall into that camp of they have an idea, they just haven't taken the leap yet. So did you self-fund this to get it started? Did you guys go out and raise capital immediately? Like, what was your guys' thoughts on like getting the business off the ground?
So initially self-funded. We each put in about 100K. So enough capital to like take bets and play with it. I think the advice I would give is if you can find a bet that you can take as an entrepreneur that costs you a non-life-changing amount of money and it gives you a real probability at a life-changing outcome, go do that, right? Like I think people are so afraid of failure and losing 5 or 10 grand that they miss out on shots on goal to have a totally different life. And in my opinion, I think most people's opinion, a much cooler and much more fun life. I think if you have a reasonably thought out path to burn 5 or 10 grand for a real shot on like changing your life, that is almost always a good call. And so we got a bag design for like a few $1,000s. We built a little bit of inventory for a few $1,000s. We sold it at a price that made sense to make a business around. And I think by the time we actually said we have a business in July of 22, I don't, Steven, we maybe put in a few 20, 30K.
We had probably spent like 30 to 40K collectively by then.
Okay.
So,
I mean, I guess like 30 to 40K is not something that everyone can just go and materialize, but it's something that a lot of people can materialize with the right like will and passion. People tend to focus too much on small amounts of money and not enough on large amounts of money. Like if you don't spend this $5,000 or whatever, like is your life going to change that much? Probably not. Like maybe you'll go on a vacation. I don't know. What would you do? Right?
Sure. Yeah, no, it's a good question.
But if you do spend it and it pays off, then what? And the other thing too is that like people seem to be very like short-sighted in how they plan for these things as well.
Yeah.
So actually, I forget what I was going to say. Seth, you can continue if you have anything to add. I'll come back to it.
Yeah, I think there's just like a zooming out thing, right? Where if you plan over the course of a decade and you see if I make 5 reasonable bets, and I've talked to people who I'm friends with who will give me real feedback, and they see these bets are reasonable and I'm not being crazy, chance of one of those 5 hitting, like this is not my first project, this is not Steven's first project, right?
Sure.
We've failed before, or we've succeeded in ways that we weren't excited about before. And so, I've burned 4 figures, sometimes 5 figures on ideas that I thought were good and weren't. Apparently, the market told me they were not good ideas, right?
Okay, yeah.
And so, if I had a philosophy of I'm not going to risk 5 or 10 grand on a thing that I think is a real shot at changing my life, I would never have done those, which would have saved me money, but also would have done this, and I would, Masa wouldn't exist. And so, I think as long as you're making reasonable bets, and those are credibility checked with people who are smart, will give you real feedback, and ideally have done something relatable before. If those kinds of people are telling you this makes sense, here's a structured way for you to go like spend $10,000 in 3 months of your life or 6 months of your life to go test it, right? And like find out if you're right or not. And you do that 3 to 5 times in a decade, and your chance of hitting something legitimate is pretty high. Not guaranteed, right? But like pretty high. And I think having a pretty high chance at owning a real business that you have fun with and it does a lot better financially than most W-2 setups is an unbelievably good trade.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I know
also,
yeah, go for it, Steve.
Sorry, continue. No, you can finish what you're saying.
Oh no, I was just gonna say like I was in that same boat, 2 years ago, and kind of did the same thing. I looked at essentially exactly what you said. It's like I could stay in this for the next decade, and this is kind of my W-2 path. And then the other path is just kind of unclear, but it's also kind of exciting. It's like as long as you can kind of cover the bases and make sure, especially if you're married or have kids or something, you're not going to be on the streets. You can like make it work. Then it comes down to like how hard do you guys want to work, which I think that was a whole paradigm shift in my brain. I know, and it happens to a lot of entrepreneurs where you go to realize like you're giving up time for a set amount of money, then you switch that to being like, oh, I can exponentially put in work that can equal
Yeah.
something totally different, right? There's no ceiling, essentially.
Yeah. Stephen and
The
I
other
consider
benefit of entrepreneurial work that goes back to what we were saying before is the more you work, the less money you have to spend. So if you're like,
That's true
if
too.
you're like, hey, I'm going to take my $10,000 and go put it in a business, like try to build this thing. Well, you're not going to need the 10K anyway, because like you're going to be stuck home on your laptop for like 80 hours a week. Like, what are you doing? You're not spending that, you know?
Yeah.
So that
That's
also
a
helps
take
a
I
lot.
have not heard of. That's a great point.
Yeah. Stephen and I both consider ourselves really lazy, but we work probably 16 hours a day most days. And so it's funny, like work really, really hard to never have to work again.
Mhm.
Far enough out where in the macro, I'm pretty sure I'll work less hours than I would have if I stayed in any other job. But yeah, to Steven's point, you have no time to spend money, so don't worry about it.
That's such a good point. And for you guys, I
Yeah.
mean, and this is something maybe for people who are stuck in that W-2 route. I mean, you guys have obviously taken off, and it's been a quick start from at least the outside. And hearing you guys talk today, what does a macro view look like? I mean, you guys just talked about the ancient life philosophy, and like that to me, there's like so many businesses that come out of that. Is the thought that you guys would build that for a long time and it'd be a profitable, call it a family business, or do you think there's an exit someday where someone wants to acquire something like that?
I mean, if the markets are such that someone's willing to pay a good price for something that we built, like I'm probably not going to say no to talking with them. But
Sure.
we're not building it for any sort of exit. Like
Yeah.
we're building something to actually accomplish a mission.
Yeah,
I love that.
We're not, like philosophically opposed or bound to any particular path. We're profitable as of June.
Congratulations! That's huge.
Thank you. Yeah.
Especially for a food brand. I mean, just know that from my finance background. That's tough to do. Congratulations.
Yeah, and that's been a lot of sticking to D2C, where margins don't get cut through the middleman as much, which is great.
Sure.
But so we're profitable as of June, which allows us a lot of flexibility to build a business kind of the right way. I think a lot of VC-backed businesses burn until they exit or die, and that is just not a fun business to build. So we've been pretty intentional about, frankly, like slowing down on certain things where we could burn more cash to accelerate, but we don't really want to own a business like that. And so we, 5 years from now, we look at each other and we're like, this sucks. It's not fun anymore. I don't want to be here. And Kellogg or whoever is going to offer us an exit that feels fair and good to us. We're open to that as like a path down the road. And if in 5 years we're working a lifestyle we like, taking distributions that we're happy with, and that keep it for 30 years, but we build out other modules, that's fine too.
Yeah, love that. No, and I love what you guys just said. I mean, you're trying to solve a problem. You're building a mission. If something comes along, I mean, I think that's like the best perspective and mentality you could have.
Yeah.
You see too many brands that you can tell are trying to build for an exit, and that usually doesn't work.
Yeah, it's like it's the same type of mindset where people are trying to like build a business for the money. So like we talked before about like trying a few different things, making small asymmetric bets and whatnot. The thing, and I've certainly like started like a handful of businesses before to varying degrees of success. But I think the key insight here is that you're not trying to look for a business to start. Like the right business to start will find you if you're appropriately prepared for it. So I see a lot of this type of talk on like money Twitter or wherever it is, wherever like the people who are like talking about entrepreneurship, and so I can like go quit my job and live in Costa Rica on a beach somewhere. Like any of that talk, or like move to Dubai or whatever. Like if you're looking for the business to start, it's probably not going to be the right path. And also, I mean, this is an opinion. I mean, if you want to like do a case study of like successful businesses that everyone like loves talking about, none of them were seeking out businesses to go do. Like the idea and the opportunity just like fell in their lap, and they were prepared to take advantage of it, and they did, which is a very rare set of circumstances. But they weren't like seeking out a way to go make money. Which I think is something that people need to like. People think too small, honestly. That's like the symptom of this. If your head is thinking large enough, like the right opportunity will come to you, and it may sound crazy, but you'll actually go do it. But if you're only focused on like small things, then you may miss that thing because you're looking at things that are too small.
On the note of people thinking too small, I think an important thing to understand about entrepreneurship is your job is not to go do anything in particular. It's to coordinate the world around you to solve a problem. And so it's like, I think people are like anxious to start pulling things together, hiring people out to help out with particular tasks and getting leverage to go create an organization to solve a problem at scale. And what they end up building for themselves really is like a services business. So like when I was a kid, I was like a tutor, right? Where I'd make 20 bucks an hour or whatever to tutor people in math. And that's not a business. That's just a job, right? You're now being contracted hourly to go do something. A business is finding a funnel of people who need tutoring services and people who are available to a tutor and connecting them through a marketplace, right? So like actually making like that is a business. And I think people who find themselves selling time and calling that entrepreneurship, I think it's not a bad thing, right? There's nothing wrong with like taking a side gig where you're creating a service job for yourself and you're getting paid. But I think there's no scalability in your own hours a day, and you can work as hard as you want, but like you're not going to get more time. Whereas if you create a system where you can plug more capacity in and more demand in and more flow through, right, that coordination being an entrepreneur actually is and is a business.
Yeah, like being a
Got it.
lawyer
Yeah.
isn't really a business, even though they may
Yeah.
make a lot of money or they're
Or
like
making a law firm
self-employed
is.
or whatever. Owning a
Right.
law firm is, yes, but
So if
like
you can
being a
create
lawyer is not a business.
So lawyers are, it's not a business, it's you have a job. But the law firm creator who finds lots of demand from people who need lawyers and lots of lawyers who need contracts to go read and give comments on, like that guy created a business. And there's a bunch of people underneath him who might, or girl, right? And they have a bunch of people underneath them who may think they own businesses, or they have a business unit or something. Fundamentally, they're service workers, which is fine, but it's not entrepreneurship. It's just like a different fundamental value out of like, what are you being paid by the universe to go do?
That is a really interesting perspective. I've just never heard it broken down that way. It's funny, and that hits home because that's, I'm essentially building a services business. I told you guys that before we started. I never thought about it like that because we kind of set out to break essentially what's out there, right? Because we felt like brands kind of get run through that funnel and the process sucks. But it's really interesting. Actually, I've never thought of it in that light, and you got a really good point, especially if you're thinking about building real wealth. I mean, I think that at the end, like again, if money's not the focus, but there is a piece of that you want down the road with that outcome. What you just said is so true, right? Like that's how you truly build wealth, I think.
Well, it's
Yeah,
just the
it's-
agency problem, and like we've seen this firsthand with like agencies that we paid to do X or Y. Like we
Sure.
like the guy who's offering the services, he does a good job. We pay him to go do it, and then he's trying to grow his agency. Not using the word business specifically. He's trying to grow his agency, and then all of a sudden there's a bunch of people that like don't know how to speak English or like read.
Yeah.
Like in the Slack channel, and then now it's not fun working with this person anymore. And then eventually, if that doesn't get taken under control, then we're going to go and find another agency with some other guy that we really like that's small, and he's going to do a good job, and then he's going to grow, and then it's going to be another Slack channel full of people who can't read what I'm writing, and then we're going to leave, and it's this endless life cycle.
Yeah.
But it is a problem because the only way he can make more money is by charging more hourly or whatever per project, and then at some point that's going to be too much for us. So
For sure,
it's an issue.
Yeah. I mean, it's an issue transparently, and we talk about it openly. I mean, that's the challenge that we knew we were setting out. We were going to deal with eventually. The fun piece, hopefully, maybe we're differentiated. We're taking equity bets with brands we really believe in. So that's where my probably differentiation is. Like we have a pillar where if we're super bullish on you, we probably will put some seed money in. A few of those pay off hopefully. But you're totally right. It's really, really interesting. You guys have really thought through just this overarching business concept a lot, I can tell. It's really cool to talk to you guys about it because I think you have some really, really good philosophies. As we get close to the top of the hours, I want to be respectful of your time. One of the questions I love to ask, and for you two just being totally different guys, you seem like a true yin and a yang, which I love. For everyone listening who, wants to get into entrepreneurship or wants to start their own business, one of the things that I've always found is pretty typical with a lot of successful ones is not necessarily like a thorough or a strict process, but they, to some degree, they're goal-oriented people. Whether you guys are or you're not, would love to hear what tools you guys use, whether it's, for Masa or Ancient Crunch specifically, or personally, what tools you guys use to basically, macro goals, yearly goals, all the way down to the shit you have to get done today. Are you guys pen and paper? Do you use apps? Like, what do you guys use to just accomplish what you need to get done?
We have, on the yin and yang point, very different approaches. I have an Outlook inbox and I have a schedule. And if it needs to get done and takes time, I block out time in my schedule to go do it. If it's in my inbox, I'll read it and respond and get it done. And everything outside of that just doesn't really work for me. So that's pretty much my workflow.
So everything's on the calendar for you.
Calendar and inbox, yeah.
Okay.
The sort of quarterly goal setting stuff happens in this thing called ClickUp, which I have lukewarm feelings toward.
Okay.
It's like, it's good because it's like Notion. It combines, it has like documents and stuff, markdown formatting, whatever. But it also has like lists, like as a fundamental aspect of it, like to-do lists basically are integrated. So like if you're typing out a little task, you can, or on a page, you can tag a specific task or project, or you can tag a specific document where there's a description about the project. So in theory, it works very well. I think the interface is a little bit clunky, and like we're like doing stuff too quickly to really like use it every single day or every week. However, quarterly goals and annual plans and stuff do get written in there, and that is of course thought about. But
that being said, outside of tools, I think from a mindset perspective, there's a really good like Warren Buffett story that goes around Twitter every few months. Write down your top 25 things you care about, circle the bottom 20, and never do those things because those distractions
I've heard that
matter. And it's gotten to the point where it's a little bit corny, but I actually think it's really powerful because at any time you have a job where you're responsible for a lot of agency and deciding what to go do, there are way too many competing priorities. And if you don't say no to almost everything, you never get the important things done. And so I think Stephen and I both keep a very clear focus on whatever the next bottleneck is and going and fixing that bottleneck and moving on to the next one and letting, frankly, lots of balls drop that just don't matter as much. And so like you have to be okay understanding you could do 400 hours of work every single week if you have the time in your week. You don't have the time, figure out what you're not going to do and do things you're going to prioritize. And if you don't prioritize, the universe will prioritize for you and it'll do a much worse job than you do.
As perhaps a very pertinent example of this, we get a lot of people reaching out that are always saying like, oh, there's going to be some event that you could send Masa to and sponsor and pay us money, and then X, Y, and Z desirable people will interact with your product. Or another version of this online is like, hey, we have an email newsletter with 100,000 subscribers and it's 50% open rate. Like, will you pay us $2,000 to like shout you out in our email newsletter?
Okay, like, yeah, sure.
Like the probably the base case of either of those is that they just don't work and they take a lot of time and money and are just like pointless and distract everyone. But like the important thing, because people will see this, even myself and Seth included, like you'll see this and be like, oh, this could work. This could be good. Like what if? So think about even if it did work, right? Let's say we sent out this email newsletter and it was a smashing success. And I don't know, it had like a 2% conversion rate or something, drove a lot of sales. Then what? Okay, I spent all this time, spent this money, formed this relationship. Then what? Like, how is that scalable? Short answer is it's not, because maybe you'll find other email newsletters who want you to sponsor them, but those won't be as good quality, or at least not all of them will be.
And there's not a relationship between them, right? So if you have ads that work, you can go pump money and time into ads. If you have an email newsletter that works, there's no way of like hitting the lever for free to just put more money in and have more things cycle. And so it's like linear work for linear return versus a fixed amount of work for a functionally infinite return.
Yeah, because like if you have an ad and it takes me like an hour to go make an ad and I spend $1,000 on the ad, okay, whatever, cool. But I could also spend an hour to make an ad and spend $100,000 on the ad. Like it's the same hour, but the result is scalable. And so I think it's very tempting to focus on these sort of cutesy things, which may honestly, they're just a distraction from doing the things that are scalable. And of course, the things that are scalable are the things that are hard, which is why your brain like looks for distractions so you don't have to do those things. But those are the hard things that are worth it. And so you should ignore everything else and go do those hard scalable things. Yeah, I don't know. That wasn't a question. Also, I got to run.
No, I love that. No, it's fantastic. Yeah. I mean, you guys deal with so much and you still relatively from what I can see on the outside, have a pretty small team relative to what you're doing in business. So I think both your points are fantastic. I mean, you inevitably have to say no to a lot and focus on what's important. And then you can't waste time on dumb shit, essentially, right? Like you got to make sure you're putting time and energy into things that are going to produce more sales and help build the business. I'm sure that's tough. I'm sure that's like a constant moving target that you're always trying to just prioritize and navigate through. I can only imagine. For both you guys too, Would love to hear a source of knowledge, something that I've really loved asking founders on the podcast. So whether it's a book, a podcast, an article, a Twitter thread, anything you've read recently that you think folks should go check out that are listening today.
For CPG specifically, we both read Ramping Your Brand. I don't know Stephen, who's the author? I forget his name.
James Richardson.
Yeah, so he's great, and I think does a really excellent job of explaining how to build a brand at the right speed and the right way. So if you're looking to build a brand, that's like the book to read, I think.
Okay, love that.
A good book that I read recently is on luxury branding. I forget what it's called. Maybe I can send you the name and you can stick it in the show notes.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
But it was a good book about, like, it talked obviously about like, prestige branding is what they call it. It talked about like Starbucks and Patagonia and of course the classic luxury brands, but also some of the more modern ones, and what they do differently that like makes them stand out and allows them to like rise above the sea of commodities that suck. But yeah, I think the branding marketing thing is something that it seems like many first time entrepreneurs don't often understand. Like most of the people who end up starting businesses are the ones that like make the product, like have the idea for the product initially. And so that's typically not the same skill set as like knowing things about marketing and branding. So you end up getting the person who started the business is the product guy who doesn't know anything about selling it. And this happens in tech as well, very commonly. So I think it's very important for people to read books about this stuff because there's other good way to learn about it. And it's probably a very common symptom that like brand founders tend to have.
I love that. I need to read that for sure.
Yeah. On that note, I do have to run.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having both of us on the call. It's been awesome.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure meeting both of you. Thank you for taking the time, and best luck with Masa, and let's stay in touch.
Cool.
Thank you very much.
I'll take care.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys. See you again.